What's going on, everybody? John and Will, Law of Polaris, thank you all for tuning in. Let's get into it in no particular order. These are 5 quarterbacks who I think will have a lot to prove next season and will be under the most pressure. First, let's start with Baker Mayfield. He was drafted first overall in the infamous 2018 quarterback class, and being the first overall pick, it's arguable that he's only the 3rd best quarterback taken in that first round, putting him behind Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. The Browns last season had fans believing that they were on the path to the Super Bowl with the amount of offensive talent they added to the roster last season. But the only problem is the coach was the highly underqualified Freddie Kitchens, who couldn't handle the personalities in the locker room and really couldn't seem to develop a young Baker Mayfield or that team as a whole. Now you have a head coach who spent 13 years as a coordinator with the Vikings, primarily on the offensive side, and in his span, we've seen some elite production out of the Vikings offense. Now let's look at what we have on the Browns offense. You still have Odell and Jarvis Landry. You brought over Austin Hooper, great tight end target. They made some good moves offensive line-wise this offseason, and I didn't even get into how special Nick Chubb is. In year 3, we gotta see more out of Baker. We gotta see him lead this team to a playoff berth, especially now that 7 teams can get in. Moving along, let's go over to Mitch Trubisky. At one point or another, I think you see both Mitch Trubisky and Nick Foles start games at quarterback for the Bears. Why and how those decisions are made could make or break Trubisky's career as a starter entirely. If Foles is starting because Trubisky is stinking it up and was benched, then he has no recourse unless Foles goes in, stinks it up even worse, and he somehow comes back and redeems himself and can turn it all around. I mean, all of which is possible. The Bears, with one of the best defenses in the NFL, a solid run game, pretty talented receivers, just need an elite quarterback. This may very well be Mitch's last shot to make that happen. Now let's look at my guy, Cam Newton. So Cam already has an uphill battle here because he's inheriting the Patriots dynasty, who just came off their 6th Super Bowl under the greatest coach of all times. A coach who has not had a losing season in 19 years. 19 years. So, I mean, I could just stop right there. Patriots fans are spoiled. They have had 20 years of dominating their division, their conference, and had confidence that as long as Tom Brady was under center and Bill Belichick was on that sideline, no matter how tipsy-turvy the season got, things were going to work themselves out. Again, that's some big shoes to fill. Now, add on the fact that these guys have got nothing going on offense. The fact that 8 or 9 starters have opted out because of COVID, including key members on defense, Patrick Chung and Dante Hightower, after already losing key starters on defense due to free agency. So the Cam Belichick era, I mean, this can turn out great or it can be an utter disaster. And if it is a disaster, if the Pats have a losing record for the first time since 2000, when it comes to who to point the finger to, I mean, Bill Belichick has a better track record here. And it'll definitely be a bad look for Cam if he's eventually benched for Jarrett Stidham. Now let's move over to Dak Prescott. The Jared Goffs, the Carson Wentz, the Patrick Mahomes of the world, they all got their big blockbuster deal, and the story, at least for the Cowboys this offseason, was the fact that there was no long-term deal done between Dak and the Cowboys. The tension between him and Jerry Jones. The man wants to get paid what he wants to get paid. Now say what you want about Dak Prescott, whether he's an elite quarterback or even a top 10 quarterback, he gets compared to his draft mate Carson Wentz a lot. And depending on what stats you look at, some show that he's better than Carson, some shows that he's not. Now, Dak being very persistent on the specific number that he wants to get paid, and the Cowboys declining to pay him that number and instead franchise tagging him, has actually put a huge target on his back. You want to get paid, you got to show us something, and 8-8 ain't it. Cowboys are going to have one of the best offenses. You got Zeke, you got Amari Cooper, you got this rookie CeeDee Lamb, who everyone's saying is the second coming. You still have one of the best offensive lines in the league. You got a really young, solid defense. And if the Cowboys aren't at least deep in the playoffs, that is past the second round for the first time in almost 3 decades, this is going to fall back on Dak. Now, lastly, I would say the quarterback under the most pressure is the GOAT, Tom Brady. Tom's always on this list because he's 43 or 44 years old. He's insisting that he's going to play till he's 45, and he has a reputation to uphold. Furthermore, now's his golden opportunity to prove to the world that he's not a system quarterback. He is miles away from Bill Belichick, on a different team in a different conference under a different coach with a totally different system. Who made who? Did Bill make Tom or did Tom make Bill? This is the year we find out. And he's leaving a Patriots team with no weapons to a team who, despite their record, was a top 5 offense in 2019. Weapons all across the board. Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, probably the most underrated wide receiver tandem. Not to mention they got a great defense. That defensive line is stacked. The only thing Tom doesn't have is Bill Belichick. And regardless of how the Bucs do this year, they gotta do better than the Patriots. Plus, let's look at how Tom Brady joining the NFC South just spiked up that rivalry. Matt Ryan, he will love nothing more than to make a fool out of Tom Brady the way he was made a fool out of in Super Bowl 51. Drew Brees, it's gotta sting to hear that Tom Brady is the GOAT this, the GOAT that, when really the only thing separating the two quarterbacks is the fact that Tom has 6 Super Bowl rings and Drew Brees only has 1. All eyes will be on Tom this season, and if the Bucs are in the basement miles away from the playoffs with all the talent they have on that team, then all the Brady haters out there will have their excuse to say, you know what, 6 rings or not, he was just the ultimate system quarterback. Anyway, that's my list. Let me know what you think. What quarterbacks did I not mention that you think probably is under the most pressure? If you like this video, hit that like button, subscribe. See you on the other side.